Thank you, Padmaja, and thank you for joining us on Times Now on this wall-to-wall coverage that we've been doing of the G20 summit. Thank you, Mr. Hardeep Puri, Union Petroleum Minister, Urban Development Minister, and I want to ask you, you've been getting a ringside view of the G20 meetings at the Bharat Mandapam. You've been a diplomat, you're now a minister. Hardeep Puri, try and be a journalist for a bit and tell our viewers the body language and how the G20 leaders met with each other and the atmosphere inside that room. Was it charged or was it extremely euphoric?
You know, I am quite happy with whatever you want to ask me, but don't use the past tense when you talk about a diplomat. You say you were a diplomat. I'm still a diplomat. I'm no longer a serving Foreign Service officer, but I served the Ministry of External Affairs for 39 years. I served 6 years in the international space. I was a think tanker, a Secretary General of a UN Commission on Independent Commission on Multilateralism, and I've been a minister for 6 years. So I can tell you, I have attended UN meetings, I have attended summit meetings, I have attended non-aligned meetings, I have attended G20 meetings. My answer to your question is, I've never seen anything like this, both in terms of electricity, positivism, etc. You know, somebody just asked me a question about the G20 admission, or rather invitation to the head of the African Union, the president of the African Union. And I said, please look at that photograph when the Honorable Prime Minister was receiving him along with other heads of state, government and organization. You know, that one photograph told the whole story. So a professional diplomat like me, a professional diplomat continues to be a diplomat. I was saying that this body language is unprecedented. I saw the language during the Global Biofuels Alliance between the presidents of Brazil, United States, India, Prime Minister of Singapore, Prime Minister of Italy, all the Argentina, etc. You know, it's a very different kind of thing. And that kind of positivism, that kind of positive electricity translates itself into the unanimous adoption of the New Delhi Declaration.
Well, the New Delhi Declaration, where consensus have been achieved, there is absolute consensus on every single of the 83 paragraphs. Also, no footnotes that have come in. And this has happened in the absence of Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, as well as the Russian president, Mr. Putin. Do you think there were some worries before the G20 session got underway, but now this is being seen as a major breakthrough, that you have consensus from everybody?
Navika ji, I want to bring in a nuance here. A head of state or a government may be missing. You may not have a president there, but you have his prime minister here. And that country is fully engaged, both in the preparatory work, in the drafting, etc. Equally, if a particular country is not representative, head of state government, the foreign minister is there. And look at the standing of the foreign minister. I've worked with Sergei Lavrov over God knows how many years. You've got total professionals dealing with it. So I had no doubt. I can tell you, I personally never had any doubt that there would be any discordance or that thing, because the essence of good plurilateral or multilateral diplomacy lies in the fact that you discuss an issue threadbare, you take on board the other people's doubts, etc., and you draft in a way that is a win-win. And I think the New Delhi Declaration is a classic example of a win-win for all parties concerned. And I want to congratulate not only the Prime Minister, whose personal hands-on approach has assured this, but the entire team working with him.
Well, let me ask you, in Bali in 2022, the resolution adopted at the UNGA had condemned the aggression by Russia against Ukraine, and Russia had been mentioned by name. Have we walked the tightrope by Russia's name not appearing and, a nuanced final Delhi declaration which comes that take care of India's relationships, the bilateral relationships that exist on the ground?
Let me advise you, Navika, not to stray into an area where you will need a little more orientation. Just read paragraphs 9 and 14 very carefully, and I want to rest at that. And I think the Indian approach is beautifully captured in para 14 in one-liner. This is an era for peace, not war. So just look at it, look at all the previous paragraphs. I think what you're saying, I tell you, you will find the answers there.
Well, so let me mention to you para 13, which says all states must uphold principles of international law, including
I am not getting into this. Navika, I am not getting into this.
Well, you're a diplomat and a professional one at that.
I am not getting into this for the simple reason this is an adopted declaration. It's an adopted declaration. Let's celebrate the fact that we've adopted the declaration.
Well, let me ask you about the energy requirements of the world. And this is directly your area of expertise, Mr. Hardeep Puri. Let me ask you, para 38, it talks about emphasizing importance of maintaining uninterrupted flows of energy from various sources, suppliers, and routes. So, Mr. Puri, over the last 2 years, you've been having to walk a tightrope walk in getting our energy requirements from Russia as well. Does it make your task easier now with para 13 in this consensus declaration?
Let me tell you, I have always taken the view that there is enough energy available in the world. Okay, the producers choose at any given point of time in pursuance of their sovereign right how much of energy to put things. So some countries have voluntary cuts, and I'm not going to go into it here. But we have in the last 2 years been able to ensure satisfactory addressing of the trilemma. Availability, there's been enough available energy. Affordability, yes, because the Honorable Prime Minister took steps on 2 occasions, November 21, May 22, to cut the excise duty. And on sustainability, and Global Biofuels Alliance brings into focus that sustainability part. I have no doubt that in the coming months as well, irrespective of what's here, there will be enough energy available in the world, because just as it is a sovereign right of producers to decide how much of energy to put into the market, and thereby they will not say that they're influencing the price. I have no doubt there's enough energy. We've diversified our sources, and we'll do equally well in the coming months.
Mr. Hardeep Puri, there is some sort of an expectation of a complete set of countries which will sign an association of biofuels and emphasis towards that. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this is all about, this cooperation that you're setting up?
Madam, there are already 19 countries which are on board. The 19 countries include producing countries, and the producing countries' share of international biofuels production is 85%. So out of the remaining 15%, there are not many left, number one. Insofar as the consuming countries, and interestingly, some fossil fuel producers are also on board. So International Biofuels Alliance is the shape, the process of an idea whose time has come, and I can tell you it'll be not only, it's not just the governments collaborating, it's the stakeholders, the cooperative societies producing biofuels like Unica in Brazil, the Grain Council in the United States, our own people, everybody will celebrate it. I'm not surprised it's trending at #1 just now.
I'm also talking to you at a time when a short while ago, India, Saudi Arabia and the US talked about an integrated corridor between India and Europe. Is this an attempt to increase not just connectivity, but also stymie the geopolitical issues that exist in our regions, especially with the China corridor?
And I welcome that, that decision. But in my uncharacteristic humility, I don't know enough about it. I think you should be talking to the minister concerned who will deal with this corridor, etc. You know, I'm, as a professional diplomat, trained to talk about everything. But I prefer to speak about things on which I have intimate personal knowledge. So I'm sure that by the time you do your next show, the concerned minister will amplify what will happen. But there's already connectivity between the United States, the Gulf and us. And that connectivity takes many forms. It's just that today this is about a physical infrastructure issue on which, as I said, I'm going to duck this question.
Well, you know, what I like about you is that you're a plain speaking Punjabi, and when you don't want to answer something, you just very openly say that you're ducking the question. The one question that I will not allow you to duck is, you stopped at the point where you said that you continue to be a diplomat. But somehow your diplomacy after becoming a politician not quite working with the opposition in the country. The opposition says you've treated them rather unfairly by not inviting the leader of opposition. How would you respond to that?
Navika, have a heart, have a heart. There's a picture of the empty chair of Khargeji on the ramparts of the Red Fort up there. He didn't come to an invitation to a national event of such importance. That chair was vacant. What did you want? You want an invitation to go to somebody. By the way, all the Congress chief ministers have been invited to this event. I don't know whether they're coming or not. So don't bring in what I call a completely trivial issue after such a nice exchange that you and I are having. If the opposition wants to ensure that its name is enshrined in permanent irrelevance, that's the process that they're going through just now.
Mr. Hardeep Puri, do you think the big takeaway from this G20 summit in Delhi and the Delhi Declaration is the complete democratization and humanization of the fruits of development? So far, it's been about economic power of countries at the high table. Now, has the Prime Minister, with the digital transformation and with bringing in the African Union, the voices of the global South, has he made this a more democratic, alliance rather than wealth-based alliance of the developed countries of the world?
Well, I can tell you with confidence, the short answer is yes, he has. He's made it a little more. He has introduced and succeeded in achieving a human-centered approach to development in the post-COVID order for the establishment of a new international order with all development, democratization and taking the benefits of the G20 right down to the grassroots level. This was a people's presidency, not only for here, but when you see the results of what is there in the New Delhi Declaration, that will percolate down to all the people who are at the receiving end of governmental action throughout the world.
Well, on that note, any takeaways that you take from this G20 summit and, of course, the high-profile dinner yet to come? Any takeaways that you'd want to share with our viewers tonight?
Well, all I can tell you is the atmospherics is excellent. I'm not just talking about the 220 events in 60 cities. I'm not talking about the grand cultural extravaganza, the hospitality people have received. But the content, the fact that you've got a unanimous declaration and that you've got solid takeaways in each of the 6 areas of priority for India, that you've got a global biofuels alliance. So we are on the moon, now we are all over the moon.
Well said, Hardeep Puri, and there's a round of applause coming for you in the studio where I have Abhijit Iyer Mitra and Padmaja Joshi with me. A big round of applause for you, Mr. Hardeep Puri. Always balle balle.
Give them my regards.
I will.
Give them my regards. They're both my friends, Abhijit and Padmaja both. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. And it ends on a balle balle note. Thank you very much, Hardeep Puri, for joining me here on the on Times Now tonight. Slipping into a short break, much more coming up on the other side.